Hi there. Welcome to Small Business Coffee Break, the video series where we take a few minutes to work on your business, not just in it. Today we talk about employee handbooks, the good, the bad, and the ugly, with Jeffrey Daitz. Jeffrey has over 20 years of experience with labor and employment law, so grab a cup of coffee and let's get into it. So one of the things that many employers ask, has to do with the handbook. Whether they should, whether they shouldn't, what's the good, the bad, and the ugly?
The good, the bad, the ugly is a lot of companies have taken positions that we're better off not having a handbook. Because if there's something in writing and we have a handbook, it can only hurt us. That's kind of an old school approach. The new way approach, or not necessarily the new way, but the way businesses should operate is employee handbooks are for the benefit of two people. One, employee. What does it benefit the employee? It explains the personnel policies, procedures, and it's there for your protection. From the employer standpoint, why is it there? To do just that. Educate the employees. Educate the employees on the personal policies, practices, vacation, PTO, leave, accommodation issues, whatever it might be. People have a misconception that an employee handbook is a dangerous tool. It's actually, from my standpoint, I'm an employment litigation defense attorney. From my standpoint, the employee handbook is critical. Every company should have it. However, here's one of the problems. An outdated handbook is not worth the paper that it's written on. So if a handbook is outdated, it could be a bad vehicle because the laws change, the times change. So if your policies aren't updated, you could be training on the wrong information. The second problem you have with handbooks is lack of training. You have people that issue employee handbooks. They give the employee handbooks out. They have people sign the acknowledgement page at the end. They hold on to the acknowledgement page. Some employers do not even give the employee the handbook. So they basically say, here's the handbook. Read it at your leisure, sign the paper, give it back. And what happens? The employee puts it away. It's in a drawer. It's lost. But the problem is a lot of managers, they don't even know what's in the handbook. So if an employee did in fact come to them and ask them a question on the handbook, most managers have no idea how to answer it. Why? Lack of training. So if you're going to do the handbook, you do it right the first way.
Right. So so what I'm hearing is it's not just doing it right; it's using it. So the handbook should be a tool that's often used in their day-to-day practices, in running our businesses, not just an informational tool that's referenced on the odd occasion, which is probably why it doesn't get updated all that often.
That's true, and some people are also fearful of the fact that in the day it might have cost a lot more to do an employee handbook. Mm-hmm. But it's not really an expensive tool. It's a means and a method that you need. Companies need to have the handbook.
When we're talking about updating, rule of thumb, what would you say how often should it be reviewed?
I'd say annually.
Annually at least?
The laws change enough times. Okay. But the interesting thing, when you update it, it's important. We have seen a lot of cases where in discovery and litigation, we take an opportunity to look at the employee handbook. But what do we find the handbook to be? We find it to be an employee handbook that is just either, some people say, well, yes, I have a handbook. They say, how did you get it? I went on the internet. And what do? I copied it and that's it. I changed the names, I put that, and I implemented that as my handbook. Well, obviously that's a bad tool. Sometimes payroll companies offer handbooks, but does a handbook that's being issued to you by another company give you indemnification? Can you literally rest assured that the information that's in your handbook is legal, is going to be compliant with state and federal law? The answer is no. You need to be very, very careful that the employees are reviewed by experienced counsel. The problem is sometimes generalists might look at an employee handbook, or they might not have the familiarity to understand what the changing landscape of the employment laws are. So again, a good tool, a good vehicle, an annual review is simple, it's relatively inexpensive. People should not be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of the process. Actually embrace the process. It's for everybody's protection.
If you have any questions that you'd like to ask Jeffrey, I put his contact information in the description below. If you have any questions you'd like me to ask Jeffrey or any other professional in their field, my information is also in the description. See you next week for another cup of coffee and more questions answered.